on behalf of the local committee, the regional committee, and the IC, International Committee of MES, we all welcome you for a very successful conference here. And also, I will very briefly tell you what our plans for the day is, but I'm not going to talk too much so that I don't. The inauguration will begin with Blue Horse Skelton. She's a Nez Perce Cherokee. She's one of our colleagues here at the university, and she's going to bless the land. She's remembering the ancestors whose land we are standing on. And after her, we will begin by President Wim Beagle of the university, Portland State University, will welcome you, and we'll take it from there.
Welcome. Tatsme Lee. Can you hear me okay? Tatsme Lee. It's an honor to have you here in our home. As Swapna said, my dad's family is from Idaho. We're Nez Perce, or in our language, Ninipu, the people. My mother's family is from Oklahoma. We're the Aniumbia and Chickasaw. I've lived all my life here in the West, and I'm very honored to be part of the PSU Indigenous Nations Studies faculty. And the building you are sitting in is our home. We came together many years ago, Native students at PSU, in a unique collaboration with PSU administration and the Native community to dream of the building that we are sitting in now. The building is one that is the manifestation of all of the values. We sitting in circle, the natural light. You get a chance while you're here to visit the rooftop garden, surrounded by our elders. Our elders are the plant people. So out behind me, we're surrounded by western red cedar, Oregon grape, and many of our healing and medicinal and edible native plants. The women said, and there's got to be a kitchen. So we have a kitchen here. There has to be a place for children to play. And so if you enter the other part of the building, you'll find a play space. The building itself was designed to honor salmon. You are in Salmon Nation. This is salmon country. And so if you step back from the building, you will see the shiny silver skin of our metal roof. And you will see the dorsal fins of the salmon, which also look like the teepee poles going up through the roof and extending beyond into the sky. The west end of the building is the head of the salmon, and the tail is the east, and the tail is the west end. And if you exit or entrance, you'll see we have 4 directions represented: the north, the south, the east, and the west. Also to the west, you will find a welcoming pole with a salmon on top. This is to let people know that you are in Salmon Nation and that everybody is welcome. We have classes here. We have feasts here. We have salmon bakes. We have conferences. We have gatherings. We've had celebrations of Honor Day graduate students and students graduating from PSU programs. We've had far too many memorials here when we lose young people or our elders. This is a sacred space, and I really applaud Portland State University for recognizing the value and the role of the sacred. It's part of education. And as each of you are gathered here to look at Indigenous ways of knowing, how we are thinking, how we view the world, how we move and think and dream the world, I hope you'll come again and again to this place that we call home. I'm going to offer a song. It's a thank you song. It's a beauty song. And you can stay seated. see all y'all. Thank you for being here.
Good afternoon and welcome to Portland State. Judy, thank you so much for the beautiful start of this meeting. Today, of course, I particularly want to wish a happy Father's Day to all the fathers in the audience. My family gave me grief for breaking away from the celebrations. I'm very happy to be here just a brief time. Even though I have to admit that asking me to welcome this group, I don't know whether you've made a serious mistake, because I do feel a little bit like, like an imposter. I'm going to be unmasked at this event. Probably as math educators, I suspect that when you introduce yourself to people, that everybody tells you their favorite, or perhaps not so favorite, story about their experiences in math. I will be no different. I will start with that story because that's what immediately came to mind when Swapna invited me. And my story goes back to 7th grade. I grew up in Amsterdam, the Netherlands, so you have 6 years of elementary school, and then in 7th grade you start in secondary school, which was the college prep school. And really, in elementary school, we really just had arithmetic. And I was very good at arithmetic. From a very early age on, I could do, mental math very easily. My dad was a bookkeeper, so I probably came by it honestly, and he would have me help him with his books. And then when I started in 7th grade, we started with algebra. And our teacher was sort of a very old-fashioned Jesuit priest, wearing his black robes, and not terrifically patient with a bunch of 13-year-olds, which I've never understood how anybody can be patient with a bunch of 13-year-old boys, but he certainly wasn't. And still remember that one of his favorite disciplinary measures was to take the blackboard eraser and throw it at whoever was annoying him for whatever reason. I remember one time when he got so angry, he grabbed a boy's lunchbox from his desk and threw that across the room, and then he was embarrassed, so he spent the rest of the class period sort of trying to push the dents back out of the lunchbox. But my experience that really stuck with me was that it must have been after either Christmas break or Easter break, I can't remember. We were back, and he was kind of reviewing some of the things from just before the break. And he asked me some question, which I didn't know the answer to, and then he asked the next simpler question. I couldn't quite get it. And of course, I was getting more and more flustered and embarrassed, till finally, in exasperation, he said, "Okay, well, what is A times A?" Now, as I told you, I was very good in the tables of multiplication, and I was very good at reading. But the whole concept of multiplying two letters with each other, he might as well have asked me to multiply a soccer ball with an ice cream cone or something. I had no conceptual framework that made it make sense. I think that instilled a deep fear of mathematics in me, which it took me many years, and some might say I still haven't quite gotten out of it. Indeed, in the American context, it's kind of embarrassing for me to at times admit to people that even though I have a PhD in sociology, I'm a university president, I never took calculus. It seems to have worked out all right for me, so I gotta say that as a president, the skills that are most useful are simple addition and all too often subtraction. Rarely do I get to multiply much, or definitely we divide all the time. So that was my experience, but what it tells me, of course, that I know you know, is that the way that math is taught really matters. Because it can really scare the living daylights out of somebody and may shut them down for a very long time if it's done wrong. So I know you are very aware of that and trying to think of ways. And the other thing is, of course, that we don't all need to know the same. Again, you can actually become a university president and not know calculus. There are different paths to at least a modicum of personal and career success, even without going very far. You are in not just a beautiful building, as Judy so eloquently shows, but I think in truly a beautiful city. I'm a city boy, grew up in Amsterdam, I lived in New York, Boston, Chicago, New York, and Baltimore, a few years in South Bend, Indiana, help me God. But now here in Portland, and I really do think it's just a wonderful place. It's a wonderful place both because of the physical beauty all around us, the close connection that people feel with nature. People here really do, Monday morning, people do not talk about yesterday's game. They talk about where they went hiking or fishing or, how they experienced nature that past weekend. And it doesn't take much to go and be right in nature. It's also a city that has a great deal of social and civic capital. People really believe in the common good and participate in the public realm in a way that really far exceeds many other cities. I'm not just sort of making that up as a newfound chauvinist. I've only been here 70 years, but Robert Putnam, a famous Harvard sociologist who wrote the book Bowling Alone, developed several metrics of how to measure the amount of social and civic capital in the city. And Portland ranks very high, or number one, depending on the year, in the United States. In that respect, it does remind me of my hometown of Amsterdam, where I lived until I was 24, which similarly, and I know there are no Dutch people. I'm very right. Did anybody show from? I looked at the F&D list. All kinds of people from all kinds of great places. No Dutch people. A country with a great deal of civic capital, where really people believe in the common good, not just in individual success or individual striving. Portland has a great reputation for, as I said, its connection with nature, for great food, which really comes out of that connection with nature. The whole locavore movement really developed here in the Northwest, a great appreciation for using local products. And that has also led to a great beer and wine culture. So I hope that they don't keep you chained to the conference every single day, and you'll have a chance to go to some of our brew pubs, try some of our great Pinot Noirs, particularly that are just great. And traditionally, this part of the country had really lousy weather. That was its main drawback. It was really lousy weather. And the one great benefit of global warming, which obviously is a huge problem, but the great benefit of global warming is that our weather has definitely been getting better. It's rain, it's sun, so for us it's good. It's a bad thing all around. Portland State was founded in 1946 to serve returning veterans after the war. It was intended to just go out of business after a couple of years because the real universities were down in Eugene, the University of Oregon, about 3 hours from here, and Corvallis, Oregon State University, about 2.5 hours away. And the idea was, of course, that in the beginning you could only take the first 2 years at Portland State. At that point it was called the Extension Center of the Oregon State Board of Higher Education. Because after all, true education must take place not in the messiness of the city, but in splendid isolation somewhere where you can pursue truth, beauty, and knowledge without being bothered by any realities that you have to deal with. In fact, what happened, of course, is that the institution kept growing and became more and more important for the city. And while we had to fight for many years with our sister institutions to not be abolished, because they, of course, didn't really want a competitor here in the city. They wanted to have it all to themselves. But we gained political strength, and I think it was because of those battles that we developed something that has become really a key characteristic of this institution. We needed to create very strong alliances with local businesses, with labor, with community organizations, with politicians, because we need to fight against the downstate institutions that were 100 years old and had a lot of powerful alumni. And because of that, the hallmark of our education became a deep engagement with our community. And we institutionalized that in the mid-90s by totally throwing out the traditional general education curriculum that most American universities have always had, which is kind of a grab bag of courses in the humanities and the sciences and the social sciences. We integrated them into what we call freshman inquiry, sophomore inquiry, multidisciplinary topic-focused courses that then integrated the social sciences, the humanities, etc. sciences. But did it in a way that often connected it with real problems in the urban area where we're located. And it will culminate in the senior capstone, where our students, every graduating senior, has to do a project with a team, because real life is often led in teams, and it has to be a real project with an external organization, business, a social service agency, or a political body, so that our students come out with real hands-on experience. But that meant that any given year, we run about 250 real-life projects. It meant that our faculty had to develop the facility of doing those projects with external partners. And that in turn helped us draw in faculty who like that, who see their work as being taking place in a real context rather than just in the library or just on a lab bench. Now, you know, we also study and teach French medieval poetry and high energy physics. You know, I'm not saying that everybody does these engaged and applied projects, but very many people do, and it's become a real hallmark. And that extends itself also, I think, to our work in math and math education, because we are deeply engaged with our local school district, with other school districts in Portland, but our math and statistics department really has this wonderful strength in math education. To the extent that it was named, you know, there are not that many named math departments around the country. Fireworks by Sea, who was one of our illustrious alums, very successful, who came to the United States as an 18-year-old from Iran, kind of was lost and was taken in hand by G. Enneking, a math professor, who pointed him on the way. He became very successful, wealthy businessman, and he's given back, and he's endowed and named. So now it's our Massey Department of Mathematics and Statistics. A really wonderful opportunity to be able to hire new faculty, support students, and so on. Our motto as a university is let knowledge serve the city. And our math education department does that by thinking about how do we help the region do better in math. We know how important it is. We are quite a high-tech area. We need people who are competent in the STEM disciplines in a whole variety of ways. We are deep at work making sure that the math the way it's taught in the high schools matches up with what the colleges need, both from the universities to the community colleges to the high schools and down to the very beginning of when people begin to get numerical concepts and everything else. It's an ongoing challenge, as you well know, but it is an important one. Again, my story illustrates that yes, you can get lucky and make it through, even being scared out of math early on. But most people, frankly, are not that lucky. Once that happens, and they lose that path and they lose that ability, they're going to have a tremendous disadvantage in succeeding in the rest of life. I can see from your program and the very voluminous proceedings that you have how deeply engaged you are in figuring out how to make sure that learners from all backgrounds and different cultures have access to the knowledge that they need to succeed. It's an absolutely noble pursuit. It's a very important pursuit for our well-being of both individuals and societies. And I congratulate you and thank you for working on it and doing that here in Portland. Thank you very much, and have a great conference.
Thank you. This is a strange and weird experience for me. I'm sure there's others in the audience for whom it's going to be an even more strange and weird experience. But there's a few things I just want to say about this organisation and this conference, because this conference does have, as some of you may know, a different feel to other conferences. And some of the kind of glitches, some of the things that may not always go right, some of the things that aren't around, aren't just mistakes. It's kind of the way we are, and it's kind of the way in which we handle things kind of informally and flexibly, really. And I just want to give an opportunity for us to say something about what the conference is for. And if we're all here together, I presume we're here for a purpose, and there has to be a purpose to it. There has to be something we're going to get out of it. So I want to spend a few minutes before I introduce you just saying something about MES and what it's about. Just to say as well that I've taken this from the website of this centre, and I've highlighted particular bits that I think are not just important generally, but also important to think about in terms of what this conference is for and what we're trying to do. And that is, this organisation is trying to look at cultural relevant programming, academic support, and intergenerational community engagement. And I think that's part of the process as well that we want to go through in MES. And this issue about intergenerational community engagement. I remember when I was one of the young neophyte groups coming to PME or MES or whatever conference, and I was the new boy. I still remember what it felt like when you look at these really old people and you think, I wonder what they're doing and how long they're going to keep going for. And now I found myself in this position. Just to say a little bit about MES. Now, there's one person in the room who might know where that is, and that was Tony. This is quite important for this organisation, and that is in Valencia on the 10th of July in 1966. Tony and I... 1996. Those of you who've seen my Facebook page know why I might trip up on words. Tony and I were at the PME conference, and there was a particular kind of day or so where we just kind of felt a bit frustrated. So I spoke to Tony the other day, and I said, I remember going for a drink, and Tony said, I remember sitting under a tree. I've got both of these here. We actually got a bit fed up and went off for a drink. And we sat down and we plotted and planned something alternative to this, to the PME kind of model. Not just in terms of the P, but in terms of the processes as well. We went through the rest of, there were other colleagues who were there as well, and we moaned to them, and we were the kind of angry young men at the time. Then Tony and I got in the car and we drove to Seville. I won't mention the way we got stopped by the police on the way and the fines we had to pay, because that was my fault, not Tony's. But we then drove to Seville because it was the year there were two conferences. And we walked in to the registration, and who should we meet but this man? And very quickly we kind of looked at each other and said, we'll get him. And we had a number of names we wanted onto our conference. Ubi was one of the people who we thought, if someone's going to epitomise any change or move, we wanted Ubi to be involved in that conference. And so that's why we got Ubi involved. I don't know if Ubi ever remembers meeting Tony and I and shaking hands with us. I certainly remember it very vividly. And it's actually quite now you can imagine it's a strange feeling to be back here after so many years, welcoming Ubi again to do the same kind of thing at the same kind of conference. There's a bit of the MEAS, we called it. We weren't aware at the time of what MIAS means in Spanish. But obviously some of you are. So we were told you can't go on calling the conference that because people wouldn't want to come to it. So we changed it to MES after MES. Well, but it's still we think these aims and objectives are still important. And there's still a need for a wider discussion of the social and political dimensions. Even after almost 20 years, there's still a need to carry on doing the work that we're doing and listening to the people that we're listening to. I think there are a number of people here who were at the first conference. There's obviously Uli. I think there's Oli. There's Tony. There's myself. There's Robbie Jorgensen. There's Kiko, is here somewhere. I think Jeannie Albert. Is Jeannie here? No. So I think it's just those people. There was also, up until this conference, one person who's been to every single MES conference, and that was Candy Amore. Unfortunately, she's not here today, but we've got a proxy. I think Jeff Kent's here today. I don't know if Jeff's here, but we now cannot say we've got a person who's been to every MES conference. But we have got here the people who organised MES 1. We've got Robin, who organised MES 4 in Australia. We've got Eva, who organised MES 6 in Germany. We've got Kate, one of the people who organised MES 7 in South Africa. And of course, we've got Swapna and Ryan and their colleagues who have organised this conference. Now, we will obviously be wanting to say thank you to them at some other time in the conference, but I just want to say, on behalf of those people on the international group and everybody, what sense of gratitude we have for the way in which these two people have, I'm going to say, these two people single-handedly have organised this conference, and I think there's been a huge amount of work they've done. You can imagine what one has to do to get this kind of conference off the ground, and I think they've been marvellous. And I think sometimes the emails we've had at certain times of the day, the amount of stuff they've done, most of you won't know about, but it's been fantastic, and thank you very much for doing that. We've also got the person who we believe is going to organise MES 9, which is Anna. Assuming Greece is still in existence in 2017. Assuming any of us are in existence in 2017. And who knows, we may have the people in this room who will be organising MES 10 in 2019. Who knows? Just a few more words about what MES is, because it structures the organisation and structures your engagement with each other. Because this is what we've tried to organise this conference around. I do like alliteration. And it always pleases me when you can come up with these kind of words. So there are certain processes that we think are behind MES. There is a set of principles that we have put together in the international group over the last 2 years, because there has been a gradual formalisation of this organisation, in a sense to create some kind of ongoing memory. So whoever runs the next one not only will learn from the mistakes, but actually will know which direction to go in. So there's certain purposes and principles that we have, and there's certain practices. And a lot of those are about collegiality. They are about compromise. They are about listening. They are about seeing yourself as a group and working with people. So it's not a sense of coming to sessions where you want to, and I've experienced this myself at some conferences, put somebody down or put an alternative framework. Which is why the structure we have here, which is every day, we start with a plenary, you go off into a group that will be the same group throughout the whole week, and you discuss that plenary. Because there has to be a point to invite these really significant people into our conference. And that will be about you having time on the programme to talk about those key significant events and those key significant plenaries that you will have. The presentations as well are about making it more of a collegiate event and not just someone standing up for 30 minutes talking and then someone else stands up for 30 minutes, leaving 2 minutes for someone to say, oh, that's interesting, thank you. It's about discussion, and it's about moving it into the collective. And so we would hope that that kind of principle carries on, putting people at the centre of this and putting you at the centre of discussion and debate. And so we have these kind of 4 structures. We have plenaries every day, I'm not going to go through the fine details of the programs, I think Anne will do that later. We have presentations, we have research projects, which I think is fairly new to MES, and we have a number of symposiums. That was a bit awkward with the P, but there was still one in there. I think in a sense, MES is maturing a bit. Now, okay, we're only at MES 8, so we're taking a bit of a time, but nevertheless, it's about, we're into our teens in terms of years. We're about 16 years old now. And there are questions that we as a group, if we are a group, need to be thinking about. And that is, how do we decide things? How was it decided that I'm standing in front of you today? That may be a question some of you were asking at that very point. How do we decide things? What are the processes? And also, who is the we that decides? Who has a right to make a decision about what MES does? And I think there are interesting challenges for us as we move forward in a deliberately flexible organisation. The reviewing was quite important, and thank you to all of those people who reviewed papers for this conference. That's quite central. I think we still need to discuss the issues about reviewing for MES, and that will be on the Agora agenda on Thursday evening. And you can take, I think you have all got on a yellow piece of paper on your chair, the agenda for the Agora. The Agora is a Greek word which kind of means all in it together, talking together, trying to thrash out some of the ideas and the ideals of MES. So it's obviously not a compulsory session, or none of them are. You want to go where you want, but it is quite important to us that people feel part of the organisation and can have say in which way the organisation goes. From the conference previously, we set up an international committee. MES doesn't have any money. Okay? We have a bank account. It's in better state than my bank account because it has zero in it. My own bank accounts have negative amounts in it, but we don't have money, so we don't have collateral. But we do have a group of people who have agreed to, in some senses, be collegiate, to be committed to the principles of MES, and to be collegiate and collaborative and work together to try to move the organisation forward. We don't have elections to the IC. If you want to put your name forward to be a member of the IC, there's no kind of foreign trips involved. You don't get to go to the next to Greece to be on the programme committee because we haven't got any money. But you would be expected to engage in email discussions and to take some say in how the organisation moves itself forward. So I guess we would expect at the very bare minimum people to have some experience of MES, but also some commitment to where it's going. There are some forms at the back. There are some nomination forms for IC if you want to put your names forward. That just makes it a bit easier. Again, there won't be elections for that. If you want to put your name forward, we will discuss that at the Agora and we will announce who is on the new IC. If current IC members want to withdraw, they just need to let me know. I'm only here because the current members of the IC decided that amongst ourselves we needed someone who was a kind of a front man, someone who you could blame, I suppose, and that's me. If you want to put anything on the Agora agenda, on top of the I think 9 items that are on there, there's a form also for you to do that. If you can give it to me or give it to Brian or Schwartner sometime during the conference before Thursday, then that will be really useful. That's where we are with MES and with all my bits of paper. So, in terms of trying to identify what MES is, I suppose we're a group with a vision and a group with a mission. And so is this man. And I know we often say in these situations, I feel very humbled to introduce. I do actually feel very humbled to introduce this man. He's someone who, you know, when you're kind of a young person moving into this career, you see all these names, suddenly you realise they consider you a friend and they shake your hands and they know you. And it's, this kind of environment is one in which you can get to know a lot of people. But Ubi, I think, is a man with a vision, and he's been a part of MES since the inception of it. And I suppose the question has to be, who is Ubi? So I'm going to say a few things about Ubi before I give him a chance to start. So I emailed Ubi last week and said, Ubi, I'm doing the introduction. And he said, very good. And I said, well, is there something I ought to know so that I can say this at the conference to give people an insight? And this was Ubi's response. I think that's true. That's a very good response of someone who actually is quite humble. To get Ubi to say a lot about himself is going to be difficult. But who is the Ubi that we all know? Well, I want to thank as well Ubi for gracing us with the presence not of himself just, but of his wife Maria and his daughter Beatrice, who has come today and hopefully will enjoy not just this presentation that he's about to give, but also the whole conference. I looked up Ubi on Wikipedia. Well, actually, I suppose you've all looked up yourself on Wikipedia, I couldn't find mine. So that's what I'll be writing tonight. But just seriously about, let's just look at some of the things that Ubi has done here. Ubi was awarded the Felix Klein Medal in 2005. And it said at the time, as a result of the interest of mathematics, he retired as a professor of mathematics in 1993, having earned his doctorate in 1963. He also served on the International Commission of the History of Maths for 5 years. He's the founder of the Brazilian Society for Mathematics and History of the International Group of Mathematicians. He also deals specifically with the history of mathematics in the context of the colonisation process. And I think that's quite crucial. I think Ubi's background, his context, the country he comes from, and its history has been quite crucial in creating not just a man, but the context in which he writes, and the context in which he's going to speak to you tonight. In the citation for the Felix Klein medals, I just realised that this gives me the slide that's coming up next. And I was reading that and looking at there, and it's different. Ubi was awarded the Felix Klein Medal in 2005, and it said there, as a result of his interest in the social and cultural conditions for mathematics education in particular, as regards the nature of mathematical knowledge in different cultures at different times, Ubi began to develop what's internationally his best known contribution to the field of mathematics education, the idea of ethno-mathematics. Since its inception, mathematics has continued to grow as a field of research and development, and has exerted considerable influence on mathematics education in several continents, above all in Latin America and Africa. So, a few more things about who Ubi is. Well, these days, you want to find out what someone's up to, you go to their Facebook page. Ubi's got a Facebook page, and it's this. Okay? I don't think Ubi's as big a Facebook poster as some of us in this room. But what's interesting about that is this word. And that Ubi, I think, still would consider himself, and I think a lot of us would consider himself as a teacher. And I've certainly learned a great deal from Ubi and from the perspective that he places on things. Now, there's a picture of Ubi. I was going to say to Ubi, do you know when that was taken? No. Maybe he does. But it was taken in 1969. And I think at the time, Ubi was still a mathematician. And there's 2 papers that Ubi wrote. And I guess we did consider inviting Ubi to give us a talk on the parametrization of trajectories of systems with memory. But I think what it does go to show is that Ubi actually is a mathematician. You know, he comes from that background of the hard stuff, and as a mathematician moving into the field of mathematics education, as well as moving from a very political background. There's another photograph taken in 1981. I have to say, the page was in German. I have no idea what that means. What does it mean?
Conference for History of Mathematics.
Sorry?
Conference for History of Mathematics.
Oh, there you go. Conference on the History of Mathematics, 1981. I don't know much more about that, but we can see there's a gradual kind of move towards the UBI that we know today. Just some examples of the publications that UBI's had out recently. Books on ethnomathematics, mathematics and exclusion, and ethnomathematics between the traditional and the modern. And also books that you may be more familiar with, social cultural basis for mathematics education, and mathematics education, theory and practice. Another book I'm sure that UBI is quite proud to have been involved with is one that Monica Mesquita and Sarah Estivo, both of whom have been involved in MES at various times, on asphalt, children and city streets. And I think that sort of work demonstrates the kind of location of UBI's thought within kids, difficult kids, the kids that, I don't mean difficult kids, kids in difficult situations, kids who matter, and trying to understand what it means for them. The kind of kids who told us now, mathematics scares the living daylights out. The kind of kids that can do mathematics without worrying about it in the context of their own life in the street. I think that's an interesting, I found that an interesting book. In MES1, that was UBI's title. We invited him to give the Paolo Freire lecture because as an ex-colleague and friend of Paolo Freire's, we thought that was important to mark that. I think there's three things there that are important to recognise that we're not just here to teach about mathematics and to teach about geometry or probability, but we're here to think about inequity and social justice and arrogance and bigotry. And they're kind of key topics, I think. And again, we can see that's been something which has featured in UBI's work over a number of years. There's also a paper that UBI wrote called Non-Killing Mathematics, and I think that's a nice, well, having a paper with that title would be a nice paper. But it's actually a key, really important one, where it reminds us that actually, as mathematics educators and teachers, we need to have a mathematical, ethical background. And there's three aspects there, which are respect for the other, solidarity with the other, and cooperation with the other. And I pull those out because I think there are three principles that we would want this conference during this next week to follow. That we respect each other, we have solidarity with each other, and we are here cooperating with each other. And I think that's quite important for us. You will see in that I've just taken this from the proceedings. I'm not going to read it because you've got it in your bag. But actually, I think the danger and the worry and the sadness for us is that after almost 20 years, we are still in a situation where, certainly in the UK, we're facing yet another conservative restoration. And you may well be over here in this country, in other countries you may well be too. And there are issues that I'm sure Ruby is going to address, which are the way in which, as mathematics educators, we actually are connected to national security in some way or another. And we have to consider our ethical responsibilities and what we're actually doing in this job. And I'm sure that in the talk that Ruby is about to give, and that's his title, that he's going to question, he's going to challenge, and he's going to threaten some of us, or some of our thoughts. And I very much look forward to that. So, without me saying any more, I'm going to welcome Ubi D'Ambrosio.
That's it. Thank you. Thank you so much, Peter. And thank you, all of you, and of those responsible for bringing me to this very important occasion. I'm very thankful, very thankful. Special day. I'm with my wife, with my daughter, with Celine and friends in general, all my friends. And this makes a very special Father's Day today. and a very, very special occasion to talk, tell something with my colleagues, with all of you, about what I have been thinking in this since, I think, ever, but now becoming something very, very important in my considerations. And I have to learn about this technology. It's so difficult. I know. I start with remembering two very close friends of mine. Of course, there are so many. Sandy Dawson left us also. But I am so close to these two people that left us that I have to dedicate my thoughts to them, because they have been, in all my academic life, very inspiring forces. And I think this is true for many, many of you or others that have been with them. Paulus Gerlis was, well, there's no need to say more about Paulus Gerlis, neither about Maria do Carmo Domiti. Paulus Gerlis was really a voice for cultural dignity in Africa, and Maria do Carmo for cultural dignity among the Brazilian natives, native population. So, a tribute to them. In the title of my talk, I have a threat, the appeal, and the proposal. So I will elaborate on these 3 points. The threat, it's the state of the world is bad. It's really bad. I use this editorial from Science magazine, from one of the very important scientists in the United Kingdom. The main threats to sustain human existence now come from people, not from nature. We know that nature has been doing something that, El Niño always causes problems with weather, all this, but the main threat comes from people. Ecological shocks that are irreversible degrade the biosphere and could be triggered by the unsustainable demand of a growing world population. And the world leaders are discussing about controlling carbon. They are discussing it's important to make money for the companies. This is priority, even if the world, even the world goes finished in a few decades. This is very serious. Fast-spreading pandemics, and we have more and more of these pandemics appearing, they are a threat to population. This will affect many in the developing world, but it will affect everyone. There is no privilege for first world, or if the problem grows like the plague in Europe, in Middle East, it will be to everyone. So this is very serious. And political tensions will probably stem from a scarcity of resources. Who has water will have power, and they may use this to dominate others. Climate change aggravates this. Equally worrying are the powerful new cyber, bio, and nanotechnologies. We have technologies that in the heads of some people may cause disasters, big disasters for mankind. Indeed, we are threatened by a few individuals that could trigger societal breakdown. This is really, read the papers every day, you see indications that this is the real situation. It's very serious. This was noticed by the International Mathematics Union, and the vice president said this: while it's not new that scientists are involved in the study of climate change and sustainable issues, a new feeling of emergency has developed. The warning signs are becoming more numerous than urgent action is needed if you want to save the planet from a disastrous future, since we may not be far from a point of no return. Climate change with more extreme weather events, rising of the sea level with the melting of glaciers, shortage of food and water in the near future because of the increase of the world population and the climate change, loss of biodiversity, new epidemics or invasive species, etc. All these are really big threats. The mathematicians are recognizing this. And this is by the Vice President of the International Mathematics Union. The Bulletin of Atomic Scientists, they publish what they call a doomsday clock that talk about the state of the world. And the clock is 3 minutes to midnight. Midnight is doomsday. This was recent, assessed in June, this month. They say, unchecked climate change, global nuclear weapons modernizations, outside nuclear weapons arsenals pose extraordinary and undeniable threats to the continued existence of humanity. And world leaders have failed to act with the speed or the scale required to protect citizens from potential catastrophe. So you see all the discussions of our leaders of every side. There's no point to say this, oh, this party or that. All are talking as if nothing of this is threatening. This is irresponsible. Well, despite some modesty, positive developments in climate change arena, the Kyoto is still a problem. Current efforts are insufficient to prevent catastrophic warming of Earth. The clock ticks now at just 3 minutes to midnight because international leaders are failing to perform their most important duty, ensuring and preserving the health and vitality of human civilization. And we are teaching students thinking that they will be doing this or that in the future. They may not have a future. This is serious. I'm not being catastrophic. I'm afraid. And I use the words of very distinguished mathematician, 2009 Abel Prize, that's equivalent to Nobel Prize. Earth will run out of the basic resource. We cannot predict what will happen after that. And we will run out of water, air, soil, rare metals, not to mention oil. Everything will essentially come to an end within 50 years. A mathematician of the caliber of Mikhail Gromov would not say this just by saying. No, he has the responsibility of being the Nobel Prize laureate. So when he says something, he did much research to make an affirmation like this. And he say, I am scared. It may be okay if you find solution, but if you don't, everything may come to an end. Mathematics may help to solve the problem, but if we are not successful, there will be no mathematics left, because everything will go out. We blow up. Well, this is very serious. There will be not any mathematics left, neither any mathematics education. What will do if the world is gone? Our children are gone. This is very serious. And he says, mathematics may help to solve the problems, but we need creativity. We need a new thinking in mathematics education. And I would not, Gromov says, I would not only focus on mathematics, but on science, art, and whatever can promote creative activity in young people. When this develops, we may have some influence, but not before that. We need creativity. We are not able to take care of this with our current methods, our current knowledge. We have failed. Otherwise, the world would not be in such a bad shape. Where can we have new ideas of new people, thinking new? We have to give them the opportunity to say something that all the other eminent scientists did never thought about. I think this is really a serious situation. Putting all this together, all the alerts and reports and the serious concerns of responsible scientific bodies, we are a responsible scientific body. The universities are responsible, academics, everyone responsible. We foresee a situation of chaos, out of which we, as educators, have to evolve to promote a sustainable civilization. This is our mission, with peace in all its dimensions. And when I say I'll talk about peace, I talk about individual peace. The number of suicides is growing. The resource to drugs is growing. Resource to drugs is growing. The violence, all this is lack of individual peace. The people that have to put their head in a pillow in the evening and sleep. They are not doing this, they need drugs. Or to harm to others. This is lack of individual peace. Social peace, there's no need to elaborate on this. Some people live on a salary. We went through some of the beautiful buildings in Victoria, $6 million, $8 million for one family. Others do not have a cover to protect them from colds. So social, I will not discuss more social justice. Environmental, we need environmental peace. We have to understand nature. We have to be together with nature and not in conflict. And, of course, military peace. While you have so much of the government revenues applied in instruments to destroy the other, we have to be very, very resourceful about this. We cannot accept this. We need societies with justice and dignity for all. This is what we need. There is a message. Is everything lost? Should we just, well, let's finish this conference and that's it. Let's cry and let's pray. No. Message of hope comes. And I was very inspired in Nottingham to see this picture of D.H. Lawrence. It was a rebel. Look at his dressing and all this. Beautiful. And Lawrence, for me, one of the great things of this last century. He says, floods and fire and convulsions and ice arrest intervene between the great glamorous civilization of mankind. It's fact. But nothing will ever quench humanity and human potentiality to evolve something magnificent out of a renewed chaos. This is one of the most beautiful books I ever had. Fantasia of the Unconscious by Lawrence. Well, this message of hope, let's start to do something constructive instead of just crying for what's very serious. Let's see what we can do. And I work with an appeal. I call it an appeal. And this appeal comes from scientists that in the 50s, most of you do not remember, but those of a little more age will remember that in the 50s, the Cold War was something very serious. That's the nuclear device, thermonuclear device, being stockpiled by the US and the Soviet Union, were something unbelievable. Some of you may have read the book, the movie, Dr. Strangelove by Stanley Kubrick, showing how serious was the stockpile of nuclear weapons that could be launched one to the other with just a single mistake of someone or some problems with the circuits could launch a destruction of the entire universe. So this was nonsense. And the doomsday clock was reaching midnight. Then two eminent scientists, mathematicians, Bertrand Russell, Albert Einstein, wrote a manifesto which was endorsed by scholars from all over the world. The document is the Pugwash Manifesto. It's a document everyone should read, calling for, well, let's stop thinking about destroying and saving ourselves from the other. No one will be saved. And in this document, I am particularly motivated by the following. We shall try to say no single word which should appeal to one group rather than to another. We are all threatened. All equally are in peril. And if the peril is understood, there is hope that they may collectively avert it. This is why I claim we need cooperation with the other. Does not matter which part you are, in which side you are, all must be together, because we are all threatened. And Russell and Einstein say, we have to learn to think in a new way. And I think this is, for me, it's a critical phrase. It's impossible to deny that we also need new thinking in mathematics education. Most of the proposals for new curriculum aiming at social justice and all other proposals to learn better mathematics, to do well in tests and all these are really repetition of what was done before. There is nothing new. What is the proposals are originated more than 100 years ago. Mathematics educations are repeating the mistakes, the same mistakes as the modern math movement, just showing the same thing with different clothing. There is no innovation. And so much of mathematics and science in general has been developed after, sorry that this was because of World War II, but the benefits are much more than what they were aiming at World War II. The benefits are a very powerful science and technology, mathematics in the 50s, but they are ignored in the proposal for math education. Math education insists in back to basics. They are ignoring in general the new. Contents may be questioned. Much what is considered basics is a repertoire of new techniques, different methods. Contents are organized as an unchainment of abilities to prepare students for more and more contents. These propedeutic objectives have been justified by cognitively unsustainable theories. If you do well in 3rd grade, you are prepared for 4th grade. So in 4th grade, you prepare to do well in 5th grade. And these are the main objectives that we are looking for in all these reforms. This is a propedeutic character. This must be, this is unsustainable. How is the mathematics related to real daily life of students, life of the students, not daily life of the academics, and community, and with the communities, and with the state of the world, and even to the foundations of mathematics? There is not much concern about what's going on in the foundations of mathematics, in the nature of mathematics, mathematics thinking. We know much more now than before. We have a science of the mind that doing some analysis of the brain that are absolutely ignored when math educators talk about contents. The concern with the obsolete is not new. In 1900, David Hume, in the famous conference where he formulated the problem, said, "History teaches the continuity of the development of science. We know that each era has its own problems, which in the era following or are resolved or are put aside as without interest and replaced by new problems." We mathematician educators should take care of this remark of Hilbert. Sameness does not improve the poor state of mathematics education. Trying to teach the same things in a better way, this is not the solution. A better result in the assessment in tests. Some people say, look, our tests are doing well, we are improving. This does not mean better quality of education. It's just a kind of accounting device that is disguising the search for the new. We are inside one ivory tower. We are here inside this ivory tower, beautiful. What can we say? We are inside this ivory tower, you feel very comfortable there. But we cannot really say much about it because we don't know the world as well enough either. We have to go out of the ivory tower, but it's not easy. This is Mikhail Gromov again. And I have been working an idea similar to the ivory tower that I call the epistemological cages. Some people that read my papers know about the epistemological cages. That is same thing as the ivory tower. Inside the ivory tower, we keep it repeating ourselves, drawing upon few ideas of prestigious reference. We have to have prestigious reference when we send a paper, because the referees look, oh, you did not mention such and such prestigious guy. We have to play with the referees to be able to publish. And when we publish, well, if you use the reference that the referees like, we publish the sameness, variants of the sameness. Yes. And we are applauded by peers. Our colleagues, oh, such a beautiful paper. What's in this paper? Oh, the improvement of the other paper. And what's in the other paper? An improvement of the other. And this keeps going. It is very comfortable because we get increasing salary, we get better positions, we are applauded, we are invited to talks. That's very important. To challenge this is not so easy. The challenge is what we need. We have to open space for new. And to open space for new, I call on the a friend of mine, very close friend of mine, an Uruguayan, that teaches a professor of sociology at Lund University, Fernando Flores. And once someone sent him a paper on mathematics for him to be a referee, and he protested. He said, well, these are new ideas. We have to give space to new ideas, because the peer system, the peer review system, is really an obstacle for creativity. Because of the, well, you have to have such and such reference. Why did you not mention such a guy? And all this has to be considered. So the arguments for peer review started in 1760 about, with the Proceedings of the Royal Society of London. And they started because the number of papers are so much, they had to select. Cost was a big, today cost is nothing with digital. And also, because we have to have academic rigor. But you insist in academic rigor according to your concept of rigor. If you want the new will have another concept of rigor. And this must be given the opportunity to show. If it is not good, the paper will disappear. Why you have to silence the individual before he speaks? And I am absolutely against peer reviewing system. I will not elaborate on this, but if you want, I can send some paper on this. Well, after this appeal, there is need of a proposal. I'm not controlling my time. Eh? It's okay. I have some time. Proposal. And the proposal, I thank so much Peter for, he talked about me, and I will talk about me. My proposal is the result of my life. Well, I have 80, it's not much, 82 is, but it's a good number of years. And in these years, I accumulated what I read, what I heard, what I saw, what I talked, and everything, what I felt, bodily, everything is accumulated. This is my theoretical background, framework. These are my reference, my life. I started as a math teacher, teaching elementary and middle school. I spent about almost 10 years on this, teaching. Then, 58, we got married, and this was a stimulus to do research mathematics. Quite long. And then I went to a graduate program, to the doctorate. As a doctorate, I had a teaching assistant, and I taught engineering and math majors and all. I finished my doctorate, 63, and went to, as a research, to the United States. Because of the political situation in Brazil, I stayed in the United States, and in the United States I taught at Brown University, at SUNY, mainly SUNY at Buffalo, State University of New York in Buffalo. In 72, we decided to go back to Brazil. And in Brazil, I went as a professor in the Mathematics Institute of a new university in Brazil, Unicamp. And then I stayed as professor, as director of the Mathematics Institute, and I became pro-rector as a kind of vice president for university development. And then I retired. Simultaneously, I had the opportunity of being invited by UNESCO to teach in a graduate program in pure mathematics, in Bamako, Mali. It's a beautiful project, idea of someone that would be refused by any peer review process. The greatest, one of the greatest African poets, Chikaya Utamzi from the Congo. And he was working, because of political arrangements of UNESCO, he was given the function of organizing a graduate program at UNESCO, was giving a program for Bamako, for Mali. And in this program, the idea was then that you should teach pure mathematics, pure physics, biology, all the basic sciences for the Africans to develop their own scientific body. The great idea of Felix Chikaya was not to bring the teachers from main universities in the world, good universities in the world, to live for 3 or 4 years in Bamako, because they said they will lose the labs, they will lose the libraries, so they could not stay there. But they should be going, and every 2 or 3 months I would go and spend 2 or 3 weeks in Bamako, and back to Buffalo, teaching Buffalo. So this I got the nickname of Ubiratan. Ubiratan is always touring from Africa. And then I gave promoted doctorate, very good thesis, very high level research in pure mathematics for about 10 African students in Bamako. And they got very, very bright students, and they did research in pure mathematics very easily. What for? In '78, I had an opportunity, very important. I was invited to join the Pugwash movement. And in joining the Pugwash movement, I was able to get this broad picture of the doomsday clock. We have more serious things to think about than just producing more doctorates in mathematics. And these reflections were synthesized in a very important conference in Khartoum, Sudan, on developing mathematics in third world countries. What kind of mathematics? I was teaching pure mathematics in Bamako. What's the use of that? We should focus the research in mathematics to problems that are of interest of the countries. This conference was a very good point in my career. And then in Brazil, I was invited, same opportunity that I had in UNESCO going to Africa. I had the opportunity to go to practically all of Latin America for graduate programs in science and mathematics education. All these experiences resulted in my talk in ICME 5 in Adelaide in '84. This built up my thinking about program ethic mathematics. Not ethic mathematics, I'm not concerned with the mathematics of one culture. I think this is very important. This is very important to know what this culture had of specific mathematics in there, what the other culture. This is very important. And much of the research in net mathematics has been directed to this, to specific mathematics. I want to question even the word mathematics. What is mathematics? And this is the objective of the program at Mathematics. Not only to go and see how the people in Guinea does what they do for their life and all. No, I want to have a very ambitious program. I want to understand how ad hoc practice are transformed into methods. You know all this. You look to a child that wants to stand up. She has it has an ad hoc problem to stand up. What the child does, look at a child, and goes, fights some support, stands up. Then takes the man, falls down. Then next time, stand up. It fall down. After 3 or 4 or 5 attempts, leaves the hand and standing up. What is this? This is process of generation of a knowledge, a method. A method to stand up is to regulate your gravity point, to learn equilibrium. This becomes a method. And there's no need to be holding this, standing up. And all this learning process. And this is true if you look at the history, and looking very close to the Neolithic, and Paleolithic and Neolithic, this knowledge starts this way, develops into methods. But the methods, once you have methods, you want to have theories, explanations. Look at a child at 8, 9 years, start to pay, why? Why? Why is this? Why is that? Looking for theories to explain, looking for explanations. And this is a very important step in the generation of knowledge. And once you have the theories, you go to the new, it's the invention. My program at Mathematics look at these 3 things. And this is based on transdisciplinary, transcultural, but it's not enough to look to one culture, because all the cultures get together sometime. So you have to understand the dynamics of cultural encounters. The same thing with education. What's education? It's a culture of the young, and a culture of the old. Fathers and children. The children are the new, the parents are the old. What's education? It's the dynamics of the encounter of the cultures. Culture of those, the old, who knows, and young, those that looks for. The dynamics of the cultural encounters is basic in historiography. And of course must be transdisciplinary, because you have to go to all the disciplines, and transcultural. This is my line of work. History tells us the extraordinary knowledge accumulated by mankind since the Paleolithic, with contribution from every culture and every time. If you look at Paleolithic in different parts of the world, it's amazing how things start to develop following these 3 steps. The enormous knowledge accumulated by the entire world leads to very, very important science like molecular biology, space exploration, virtualization of digital things, all these marvelous things. But why did not lead to peace? Why only for destruction? For elements of oppression? Like in economics, that the big thing is someone to have more, to accumulate more, to the expense of the other that have less and less and less. Why this happened? What was missing in this marvelous construction of knowledge? This is discussed in the paper, Non-Killing Mathematics, that Peter mentioned. It's part of a group studying global non-killing. Killing in this sense is killing in all respects. Killing by, say, bullying is a form of killing someone. All these kind of things. And this is a good line of research. Go to the Google, you'll find global non-killing, Center for Global Non-Killing. Creativity is the key point. We need new ideas, new approach to face the problems affect the world. Our generation and our approach are not producing a global change to avoid total disaster. We need to allow the new generations to think in a new way. But to think in a new way, we need a new conception of rigor. in which the integration of all sciences and all forms of knowledge, of course, including mathematics, can be done spontaneously without traumas of epistemological and cognitive nature. I have a student that is trying to understand how to relate the African religions in Brazil, Umbanda, that's Candomblé, with mathematical knowledge. You have to look at these things. You have to, art is a big element to be, and you find art everywhere in the world. How you relate all this? And this is what we have to do. But for this, we need new conception of rigor. And this, of course, you cannot now ignore the revolutionary visual effects that you have in computer and all this. One example of this, how Cabri did so much to learn geometry. And things of this kind must be explored, must be led to new concepts of, must lead to new concepts of rigor. This stimulates creativity. Games can be used. Cell phones in a classroom, mainly for children, may be very creative, but they are forbidden. Calculators are amazing, but they are forbidden, because we insist in doing sameness. Support of mathematics, as taught today, is essentially the ethics of rigor, which is very distant from a general humanitarian ethics. We are preparing students for success in many professional areas. For example, to do well in engineering, but most of them will get jobs production of armaments. To do well in economics, most of them will be hired by great banks to exploit the poor. And many of them will be hired to control the others, like the Blade Runners of the dominating class. We are preparing them to good jobs to oppress. We are preparing the oppressed to be the oppressor. This is the big aim. And this, for me, is a different concept of social justice. Not this way. We have other kinds of needs. I think it's very serious. Current teaching criticals lacks critical thinking and offers limited opportunity to be creative. In the 90s, I proposed a new concept of curriculum that I called the new trivium. This was presented in MS 1 in Nottingham, as Peter remembered. This was based in 3 concepts. Literacy is the critical capability to communicate. Capability to communicate. Say, oh, we take care of this. We teach grammar with all the rules of grammar. This is not communication, it's to follow the rules. Some people is capable of giving all the verbs, all the declinations in our language, in Latin language. You have all difficult declinations. They repeat all the declinations, but they do not communicate. They do not communicate inside of them. Literacy for me is the capability to communicate using all the instruments you have. If you don't speak, you can communicate. If you are blind, you can communicate. You can communicate in any way, not only insisting on the academic lines of. Same thing with numeracy. What's the importance of knowing criteria of divisibility and all this? How much do you communicate with the other? If you learn very well all these techniques. Numeracy, numbers and forms and measurements were made to communicate dimensions to others. And this is what has to be cultivated. And this, of course, we use all the resources, calculators, computers, everything we have to communicate well. This is literacy, and with a critical vision, always. Materacy is the second component, is a critical capability of drawing conclusions from data. It's not mathematics, no. Materacy is the capability of drawing conclusions from data, from symbols, from codes, putting them all together. Does not depend on mathematics rules and all this. Goes beyond this. One of the techniques, sometimes useful, may be mathematics. For others, like our president of this university, very successful, does not use calculus. And this is full of this all over the world. So is the drawing conclusions, look at symbols, understanding what's going on, analyzing. This is what I call materacy. Of course, mathematics was developed through mathema. That's this explanation, understanding. And this is why I use the word materacy. And technoracy is the critical familiarity with technology. Of course, the operative aspects of technology are, most of the case, inaccessible. But what to do with the technology, how to use technology, how to arrange technologies to reach your goal, this is absolutely important. The critical, for example, you don't use a cell phone. It's so important to use now a cell phone to communicate, but you don't use a cell phone to someone that you can use your voice. You don't need to use technologies for trivial things that can be done without technology. All this must be part of a critical analysis. And all the discussion about technology, some of the technologies are completely destructive and have been used as instruments of colonial imperialism. This is well discussed by Fernando Flores in a book, Fernando Flores that I mentioned before, in a book called Broken Technologies, where he analyzed historically how technologies brought from the colonizer destroyed ways of doing that was developed by the local cultures. This can be discussed, it should be discussed in school systems. And this is the component I call technocracy. And I am reaching the end in the guise of a conclusion. This proposal gives the opportunity for students to identify the main threats to planetary civilization and to be creative in proposing new directions for sustainable civilization. This may lead the new generations to think in a new way, and this is our hope, because we are unable to prepare the world for our children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. We need new thinking. And our hope is that the new will come from the new. Thank you so much.